For more on this crisis in Venezuela, let's bring in Illinois Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger, member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee. Congressman, good morning to you.
Hey, good morning.
That's a strong warning coming from Maduro. Don't get sucked into this. He's warning the United States.
Yeah, he's got to say anything he can to try to freak people out because he doesn't have a lot backing him. The military, his hold on the military is tenuous at best. The only reason the military appears to support him in any way is because he's the only person giving them money. I mean, the reality is some of these rank and file soldiers make a couple of bucks a month. They're begging for a food box from the military, and they're worried about their family, and you can understand that from their perspective. I think the vast majority of the military would turn at the point that it appears that there's a breaking point to back Guaido. They understand they live in a bad situation, but the generals are being taken care of. The generals are trying to keep hold, and I think that's why a credible military threat, it doesn't mean we're threatening to invade, but a credible military threat is important in this, because trust me, no Venezuelan soldier wants to be on the receiving end of American military action.
Meanwhile, Guaido appeared on the Fox Business Network with our own Trish Regan last evening, praising democracy and the president. Watch.
We saw democracy under threat in the country, in the region in Venezuela, and we lost it. We lost democracy. Democracy for the region is crucial, and this is very clear to President Trump. That's how he has manifested it, and also we need to speak about democracy also with our neighbors.
Fascinating to hear that from him, and he's calling for demonstrations today. More.
Yeah, it'll be big, and I'll tell you, I give the president a ton of credit for his clear-eyed assessment of what's going on in Venezuela. Also, Marco Rubio gets a ton of credit for this, too. He's been talking about this for a while. This affects us here. You know, we used to have this idea called the Monroe Doctrine, which is interest in your hemisphere, and for too long we've ignored that because of what's going on in the Middle East, China, Russia, and elsewhere. And you see what happens in regimes that are socialist or even far left. Look at all over Central America, and you see this immigration crisis to our country right now because of the policies of those nations. If you look at Colombia, they're hosting close to, I think, 3 million refugees from the crisis in Venezuela. So it's disturbing people. It's mass movements of humanity like we saw in Syria into Europe, and it is in our interest to ensure that there is democracy in Venezuela. And it's not like we're not coming in to impose democracy on an unwilling population. The population deeply wants it. We just have a guy with tenuous control over the military at this point.
All right, we will continue watching the developing situation there. Meanwhile, when it comes to Iran, the intelligence chief and military brass seem to be contradicting the president. The president's tweeting about this morning, and he just wrote, quote, "The intelligence people seem to be extremely passive and naive when it comes to the dangers of Iran. They are wrong. When I became president, Iran was making trouble all over the Middle East and beyond. Since ending the terrible Iran nuclear deal, they are much different, but a source of potential danger and conflict. They are testing rockets last week and more, and are coming very close to the edge. Their economy is now crashing, which is the only thing holding them back. Be careful of Iran. Perhaps intelligence should go back to school," writes the president in a string of tweets. That was the latest one this morning, Congressman.
Well, I agree with what the president's saying about Iran. I think him pulling out of the nuclear deal was huge. Iran has, by the way, about 40,000 troops in Syria. They are extended. They do have domestic problems, and there's a lot of economic issues in Iran. Where I wish the president wouldn't do is show any kind of division with his intelligence chiefs. I think it's not beneficial for us. It's not beneficial for our presence on the world stage. If you disagree with intelligence, that's fine. He's the president. He has a right to do that, but I don't think he should put that out on Twitter. He's correct in principle about Iran. There's still a threat. He has made some very devastating gains against Iran, but there's still a major threat out there. I just don't like putting this, I call it dirty laundry or whatever, this disagreement with intelligence, which is the backbone of any decision we make on foreign policy. It is not helpful to put that out on Twitter.
Interesting to hear that from you. What we heard in that hearing that took place, that briefing on worldwide threats to the United States, Dan Coates, Gina Haspel, is that the Islamic State remains a forceful presence in Iraq and Syria. What we have heard from the president is that ISIS in Syria will soon be destroyed.
So I've met with the president on ISIS, and I can tell you he's very he's very introspective about it. I mean, he very much understands he wants to defeat ISIS. That was a bedrock of his campaign promise, and he realizes that, frankly, if you don't defeat them, they're going to come here and fight us again. Where I disagree with him on is this idea of a rapid Syria pullout, of a negotiated solution without any real concrete evidence in Afghanistan. That leads to a rise in terror again. And it's not just because they're going to have areas to plan, which they will, but it's also the psychological impact that it has on ISIS. They can go recruit now. It is imperative for us to lean forward on this, to never give up. We're America. The only way we can be defeated is if we're defeated in our will. And I know the president wants to do what's right. I just hope he stays on very strong offense against ISIS.
Good to get your thoughts this morning, Congressman Adam Kinzinger. Thank you.